Welcome back. Let us now welcome, okay. Welcome back. Let us now welcome our next panel session being led by Vinay Dalal. He's the co-founder of Talbrum India, and he will be talking about popular HR trends amid COVID-19 crisis, along with four of his wonderful panelists, all technology experts, joined by Sultan Ali Hasni, from head of HR and admin and support of Savola Group Panda Company KSA, which is Saudi Arabia. Adi Hassan, HR manager of Eagle Distilleries. David Van Lokum, co-founder and partner of Thrive Me in Dubai. And Amit Masram, senior HR VP at Point Click Care Technologies Canada. So warm welcome to all of you. So before we get started, let me just give you all a brief about the lead moderator, Vinay Dalal. He's an experienced chief executive officer in HR tech domain, not tech HR, with a demonstrated history of working in the human resources industry across domains and functions within an HRIS, staffing and recruitment industry, skilled and respected in HR industry for competency in HR consulting, technical recruiting, HR policies, sourcing, and screening strong entrepreneurship professionals with an MBA focused on management. So without further ado, I would like to welcome all of you wonderful guests today to the 12th HRM Summit. And Vinay, go ahead and get started.
Thank you, Helen. So a very good morning, good afternoon to whichever part of world you are. So you would have heard this in last 2 days pretty often, and you will be hearing all across that, pre-COVID, HR tech was an option. Now it is like a hygiene factor. So all of a sudden from Gen X, HR tech has become a baby boomer generation. So all of a sudden, within HR tech, a lot of evolvement has happened. So it has been accelerated heavily, and that acceleration has happened primarily because of COVID. And we know the obvious reasons. So before I start, I would like to introduce amazing panel that we have today. And you generally get, the consultant varieties who are only heads, or you get implementer varieties who have only legs. Here, the panel today is amazing in terms of having both heads and legs. So these are the people who are not only thinkers, but these are the people who are also implementing on ground. So probably we are accelerating that process of sharing our experiences together. So first and foremost, welcome David. So David combines people, technology, and business. He has worked in senior people and sales leadership roles at technology companies like Cognos, IBM, IDBI, G42, and Temo. He's the co-founder of Augmented Workforce, an AI analytics company, as well as Thrive Me, an employee wellness application. He's a frequent public speaker about predictive analytics and has been educated in people, culture, data science, and RPA. He lives in Dubai since 2009 and has covered most of the EMEA from a professional perspective. Next is Sultan. Hi, Sultan. He's head of admin and support at Savola Group, Panda Company, with 18 years of experience in retail, banking, facility management, and engineering industries at both international and local entities. He's a member of HR committee at Chamber of Commerce, holds a degree in computer engineering and MBA from Germany. And next, the next panelist is Amit. Hi, Amit. Amit is a senior business partner at Point Click and Care. He has 15 years of experience in regional and global roles across Europe, North America, in diversified industries, from pharma to tech, from healthcare to startups. He's consulting many startups on digital HR transformation. He's an alumni of TISS Mumbai, a very reputed HR related. It's one of the premium institutes in India, and NIT Trichy. And last but not the least, in fact, I'll request Adi to do a self-introduction as well as talk about, how analytics in recruitment and engagement, what are the factors that it is making it so standard that it can be part of ISO PCMM audit. Over to you, Adi.
Okay, Vinay, thanks for your introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be part of this great session, and I'm really honored to participate within Rashcom's events for the second year. Just to give a brief about myself, I work as the HR manager in Eagle Distilleries Company. I've been working in HR for the past 16 years. HR is my passion. That's the reason that made me going back 7 years ago. I was really wanting to advance the function in our country in Jordan, and that's the reason why we have made a lot of initiatives related to advancement of HR in Jordan. One of them is giving a lot of free HR sessions and training within organizations so we can leverage that function. Also, I hold 2 universal HR certifications, SPHRI and HRM SCP. Finally, I want to emphasize the area that I've been focusing on for the past 18 months, which is ISO standard 30414 that we will talk about today. Just giving a brief idea, Vinay, about the areas that you mentioned. The most important thing when we talk about HR technology and analytics is to distinguish between the trends that have been prevalent in the past and what's happening now. If we talk about HR softwares, you will see that there are hundreds, even thousands of HR softwares that deal with HR dashboards and metrics. But most of these softwares deal with HR metrics by describing a past situation. So as an example, if we talk about turnover rate, which is a traditional metric that most of us use on their dashboards, you will see that these softwares describe what happened in the past. What was the percentage? Let's say it was 6%, 5% for the past 3 or 4 years. But unfortunately, though, then they don't predict what's going to happen in the future. And this is the essence of HR analytics and how we can predict what's going to happen. I remember clearly last year when I attended a major session with a well-known HR software. I will not mention the name. We are focusing on the value, not making promotion for anyone. So I remember how they introduced the engagement as a key area within their matrix dashboard. And they made a scenarios, 3 scenarios. Every single time they were making increase or decrease in the engagement, and they linked it with the financials of the company, the bottom line of the company, how it's affecting the bottom line. So they are talking about the correlation between engagement and the financials and the prediction. If you as a company worked on the engagement, what's going to happen for the future? This is just a summary about the traditional HR softwares and the new HR softwares that are based on the predictive modeling, which is part of the artificial intelligence. If we talk about ISO standard 30414, this is one of the most important approaches that I'm using to have a consistent based approach in my plan to build a matrix dashboard. It's about providing quantitative information for HR people so they can base their decision upon data, not upon gut feeling. This metric applies to all organizations, regardless of the size or type. Let's talk about the roots. What led us to having a standard that is pertinent to an area that has been a dilemma or a headache for most of the HR people, which is the HR matrix and analytics. I will cite the study that Standard & Poor's 500 company has made. They made a comparison for the companies on their list between 1975 and 2020. They made a comparison between the percentage of intangible assets in 1975, and they comprised at that time 17% of the overall organizational values. But by time, and as we move toward what we call the knowledge economy, the percentage has been flipped. The percentage became 90% for the intangibles and 10% for the tangible. So if you can imagine that shift in looking at the value of the intangible assets made us really want to look at something that could help to measure these intangibles. Also, a big shift has been happening in the investor's perspective. In the Western culture, especially, they are now looking at the human capital data in addition to the financial data when they make buying decision or buying share in any organization.
Sure, Adil. Thanks. So we will continue the discussion towards the closure as to how we can, how it becomes a part of an ISO when we take artificial intelligence. How can we standardize it to a level where it can be a part of ISO parameters? So towards the closure, we will take it. So I'll continue this discussion on impact of AI in HR. So the entire pre-COVID, if we were looking at AI specifically, it was moving in the zone of fintech and HR tech, health tech. So it was generally there, and all AI, ML, robotics, analytics, everything was moving towards fintech and health tech because that's where the large data sets were there. But the way COVID has come about and the way things have changed now, it is becoming an inherent part of employee and employee expectations from HR department. So it is like they are divided into two worlds. As they see a Netflix which evolved from a CD to a curated content, or an Amazon change the buying pattern. Employees are expecting the same from HR tech interventions, and that is the biggest opportunity and threat. So we are focusing today on both talent acquisition and engagement because that's where the maximum impact of AI is. So talent marketplace for both internal and external candidates. How do we evaluate candidates with roles? How do we do personalization? How do we constantly connect up through bots? How do we upskill and reskill, offer flexibility for, say, a paternity leave by a real-time internal talent assessment? Or how do we map career paths? Engagement can be prioritizing employee happiness and well-being with sentimental analysis, NLPs, mails, biometric data, and leading to predictive modeling, say like in benefit planning, or how much of office versus work from home. And of course, there are the downsides in negative code biases in AI and its impact, how data view is limited to past data, or there is no imagination. So we'll check all this, and I'll start with David. Each one of us would have 2 minutes, and please, we'll mark the time. So 2 minutes, David, followed by Sultan and Ahmed. So welcome, David, and with your immense experience, please share about the topic.
Right, thank you, Vinay, and thank you, Adi, as well. You kind of like gave a lot away about, let's say, analytics, AI, etc. I would like to keep it simple for the audience because artificial intelligence, I hardly use the term, despite that I used it in my introduction. It's such a broad area of different kind of solutions. So it's very different if we talk about robotic process automation. What is nothing more than automation, where you have two systems not talking to each other, or you have a manual process that you kind of like want to bridge and automate a repetitive process. That's very different from, for example, something like computer vision or chatbots or predictive analytics, what Adi was talking about. And the next level is even what they call prescriptive analytics, what is more or less talking like kind of like giving you an advice what to do, giving you different scenarios and give you the best scenario, basically. I think the biggest impact on HR, because we are talking about an HR conference here, and let's talk about HR. Where do you see really applications? One, I think it was already pretty strong in the talent acquisition space. What do you do? Like, I'm in the Middle East, Dubai. Sultan, you're close to me as well. Like, if you put an advertisement out, you get thousands of candidates. Try to select the best one out of 1,000 of candidates. It's impossible. I mean, anyway, I don't believe that TA is able to always select the best one. It's still a kind of like a process of hit and miss. But if you want to improve that process, then an AI-based solution where you can select your CVs, the candidates that you would like to talk further with is helpful. But also another application that you see more and more in their companies, I know their sponsors might be here, but let me just mention one of the famous ones, HireVue. Robotic interviewing is kind of like helping you, because a recruiter only have 24 hours in a day and 7 days a week. So if you use a technology that will kind of like ask the questions, because that is robotic interviewing, and then analyzes the answers in terms of verbal. And nowadays, even software AI with computer vision even becomes non-verbal, like your expressions, do I keep my head straight or not, is really helpful. And it's also fair towards that. So I see a lot of application in PA space. My background is from IBM. We were one of the first companies. I don't work for IBM, by the way, now, but I used to work for IBM. I was one of the first companies that applied predictive analytics in terms of like attrition risks, what Adi was talking about, but also holding power in general, a lot of different data points to start predicting how you best allocate your salary, your compensation increase budgets. Because of course, I don't think there's any company in the world where salary increases are unlimited. You always have the limitation of budget. So how do you spend it wisely? Predictive analytics and prescriptive analytics can really help you to make the best out of your compensation money, the money that you allocate to increase your salaries. And you can even expand that further. I would like to see, and this is a topic that we're going to discuss a bit further, I would like to see it further employed around talent development. And I would like to see it also, and I think there's another topic, I think Sultan, you brought it up earlier in a pre-discussion, is engagement, hyper-personalization, like Netflix, like get something really to you. That's where I really see that AI can play a role. I would like to stop here because I want to make sure that everybody else gets some time as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Sultan. Thanks for the understanding also. Yeah, next up, Sultan, welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Vinay. I hope you can hear me well. And thanks, David, as well. I actually regarding the AI and the impact in terms of the HR and how we can benefit from there. Actually, the demand has changed in terms of headhunting and hiring, high calibers. And, most of the new generations, if you want to attract them and put them in a proper career, they would ask, for proper technology, the onboarding experience. You have to predict what kind of the requirements, all of this. So I think the technology that's can uplift significantly the employee experience during the onboarding process, during the hiring selection. We can predict and see, just do an online assessment, for example, to avoid any biases, etc. We can actually look at the numbers and put a proper job description, put them in a proper and very clear, transparent process. That can visible for them. They can see it. They know where they are at what stage. Also, the AI also can help the business itself, to actually match the right candidate with the right position. And all of this information requires a lot of heavyweight, I can say, on the HR part, because they have to do their homework and build everything properly, and they have a very solid structure they can top up and build on. So this is a nutshell. I wouldn't take much time, so I leave the floor to Emmett, and floor all yours, Emmett.
No, Ali, you make an interesting argument, and again, I think Eddie talked about sort of the predictive analytics, and David, I really resonated with David around the simplicity part. I think the way AI is actually disrupting the recruitment industry is really allowing organizations to create a more dynamic profile, to look at skills, experiences, competencies, that the tool itself can easily get integrated with the system, but also evolve itself. I think the traditional problem for a lot of big companies, again, really speaking from experience, is that they have a job profile, they have an ideal candidate, and that becomes static. I think days have gone. Those days are now outnumbered or have become obsolete. Today's day organization is looking for skills, experiences which are more fungible, so that skill can be sort of applied to different parts of the organization and become more marketable internally. The other thing that is sort of interesting to note here is also the candidate experience. I think especially employee experience, because of digitization, COVID pandemic has certainly allowed no time for the organizations and businesses to react to it. And the acceleration of digitization and focus on acquiring new skills, allowing the organization to have competitive advantage, has really taken a beating and has pressurized organizations to look at new insights and new abilities to again attract talent. I think the problem is also because there are so many demographic groups, right? The employee changes needs, the change in needs, shifts in attitudes becomes very difficult to gather. And as a result, I think organizations are now looking at investing in digital listening tools. These tools can simplify, I think simplify is the keyword, to really integrate different parts of feedback, pulse checks, and allow business leaders and decision makers to get sense out of that, and then driving that sense into better decision making and allowing them to really define what are the moments that really matter in an organization. I think traditionally employee engagement has been seen, big employee engagement surveys, 80 or 90 questionnaire, thematic analysis, sectional analysis, sort of dissecting into different areas. But I think it is important for organizations to really be relevant in terms of what are the moments that really matter for a particular demographic group. And that is really the key to sort of identify different opportunities, but also ensure that you are involving employee in the journey. Because most of the data that you see in employee experience surveys, EVP is really manager-led. As a result, I think more emphasis needs to be spent on involving the entire organization and different employees which are at the forefront.
Thanks, Amit. And I'll continue with a question for you. So what is the key to a compelling digital employee experience with AI, specifically with the rise of the remote and hybrid working models?
I think the key here is really understanding and diagnosing unmet career needs. I think today's employees are far more purpose-driven. They like to work for organizations which resonate with their purposes. They have a more ability to say and take stands on societal issues. So they like organizations which allow them an opportunity to voice their opinions and also disagreements, right? I think there are three basic things that a compelling digital experience should focus on. I think the number one thing is, as I talked about or briefly touched upon, is what are the moments that really matter for a particular employee group? And these could be males, females, career returners, mid-level managers, entry-level talent employees, right? There could be n number of things to look at that. Really diagnosing and understanding what is the moment that emotionally stays fresh, sticks with them, is really the key, because employee engagement is really allowing discretionary effort to come in. Organizations have struggled to get that in COVID times. So diagnosing and the defining moments that really matter to the employee are important. I think the number two thing is, how can you employ the group to participate in what matters to them and thereby influence practices, processes, policies, decisions that directly impact them, and they have more say in that process. And I think the third simple thing is, I think it has to be a scalable composition, right? The relevancy, the data. So the flip side of the data is too much of data complicates decision-making for business leaders. As a result, simplification and tying that data to the business needs of the company and how it aligns to the larger objectives of the organization is really important in developing a compelling digital employee experience, Vinay.
Can I comment on that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, Amit, I think you're really putting it very well together. So thank you for that. Like, what matters for employees and what matters for the business. I mean, recently David Green published a book about people analytics, and one of the key messages. And David Green, by the way, is a thought leader in people analytics for people that don't know, and read about it if you want to know more. David Green and Jonathan Ferrara are probably your people to go to. But one of the key elements out of that book was actually that you really have to start with a business problem. if you want to solve something with predictive and prescriptive analytics. And that's what you meant also with when it matters. Like it needs to, otherwise there is no point. And the other point that is often said is like insight without action. Because insight is kind of like where you go beyond your dashboards, you get an insight just like from Facebook or LinkedIn, you get some personalized message. If there's no action, it's just overhead. You're just wasted a lot of time, a lot of effort with data, and nothing happens. If nothing moves the needle, there is no point. So I think I just want to support what you said, Amatji, that you really did well, because it's not about data. It's not about the tools for sure. Sorry, all the suppliers that here on the that might listen to this. It's not about the tools. It's about the data, but it's even more about the change in behavior, what you want to achieve in terms of decision making and implementing. So I think you did very well in summarizing that. Thank you for that.
Excellent. And in fact, the next question happens to be for you, David. So should organizations use internally generated historical data to train a model, or they can use external data? I mean, we talk about product and project basis. So basically we build or we buy an AI-based solution, because that's going to be the future now. You have to have an AI solution.
Right. Okay, I don't take long for this answer. I will tell you why. Because basically it starts with your business problem. What do you try to solve? Is there any value in external data so that you need to buy data, market data or whatever? Or is it really a problem or a business issue that you would like to solve that is purely internal? So that's the number one. Number two is, if you don't have the data, then you have to buy, right? If you still want to do something. So it's as simple as that. What you don't have, you don't create. You cannot recreate the data from 10 years ago if you never stored it somewhere, if you never recorded somewhere, you cannot. So that's the simple answer to that question.
Right. And I mean, if I'm starting afresh, we are startups, we are unicorns, and there is something that we wanted to do on DEI, something like diversity. So how would these models help? I mean, whether I take external help or, yeah. So that's where the question is for you.
Okay. So I'm currently working, I cannot disclose the name, but I'm working actually on at the moment for a large multinational, it's actually multinational, it's a conglomerate. And a conglomerate that is leading in data. One of the ideas and big supporters that they have is like open data. What I mean is, like, if you look at, I live in Dubai, probably in Saudi Arabia, there are also good examples. I live in Dubai. Smart Dubai government has public data sets where people can just take that data. Of course, it doesn't contain confidential information, and you need to protect data well as well. But you can tap that data, and you can learn from it. And the idea is basically, if private companies, startups, or HR departments, for that matter, want to use that data, that publicly available data, to improve their companies or the lives of the citizens or the residents in a country, it's a great thing, right? So I think what you will see is democratize data, because if we open up, if we share, we will have so many more insights than when we keep it for ourselves. I'm happy to hear other views on that.
Yeah. So this is, that in HR we have been taught not to democratize data. We need to keep the confidentiality, and this is exactly the other way around. The other way around.
Okay. Sorry, I need to. Of course, data privacy is important. But when you look at machine learning, let's say you're predicting your attrition rates. It's not if it's person A or person B. It's more like what you learn from the data. So it's not necessarily individualized when you have to talk about predictive analytics. So yes, you absolutely need to protect data, let's say private data, individual data, but collectively, statistically, it should be shared. Yeah, shareware.
Absolutely. So next one is for Sultan. Sultan, I would need your help, and I would need your discussion on, we talk about culture being a key driver. The moment we talk of HR, the moment we talk of anything and everything to do with post-COVID scenario, culture is becoming a big word, a big term, and AI in particular. How do you think AI and organization can be interlinked? Because now this is going to be the future, the culture. Organization culture is the buzzword today across all platforms on HR and HR tech.
All right, thanks, Vinay. Regarding, let's split this into two parts. One, what is the impact of having very, very healthy and good culture. Basically, you will have a very happy employee. So, happiness at work is just about, so much more than the tasks they complete. It's also about, fitting into organization and feeling aligned with the business values, vision, the work style, in other words, is driving business success, through the culture. So this is in my view, that, on Mitchell, what is the culture? Then if we combine this culture with the AI, I would look at that into, I'll split it into three parts. One is a short, medium, and then it's a long term. So if we go into, and the short term, we think like, automating is very short term, like, cost saving, improve user experience, the quality and accuracy of the services, etc., and all. And this is part of having, an AI into a healthy culture. Then we'll go to the next level, which is, the medium term, where you go for self-learning activities, you go for better reductions, and then you have an interaction with the human as well. Then the long-term plan, which is, for example, you take as a decision making, posting human activities, etc. And this is where the added value of the AI. I think COVID-19 has given a lot of businesses, an alarm. That's a wake-up alarm, I can call it, to actually focus and invest more into their technology, because, having all your team out of nowhere, to work remotely has impacted the business mindset, how the HR has reacted to that. However, you have to make sure that employees are engaged. The culture is there. It's become, a lot tense actually to communicate and engage everybody while they're working remotely and working at home. And with having the AI there, with having all of the data in place, I think it would make the job a lot easier and visible, so you will know which area to improve and which area to invest. I hope I covered the question for you, Vinay.
Absolutely, Sultan. Absolutely. And Amit, I had a question for you actually. How would the startups and a lot of our listeners today could
to have a long-term saving potential. For example, typically if you look at an RPA kind of a model, in order to come to a break-even stage, you would typically need 9 to 12 months, depending on the organization size, the scale, and the kind of solution they want to invest in. I think as a result, saving potential in long term may yield that result. The other misnomer is really around whether that's a low-risk approach, where the organization would like to sort of head in that direction instead of sort of acquiring customers and clients as they are in their growth journey. I think those kind of trade-offs will always be there for the organizations to consider. But I think in the long run, it will always stand in good stead for the organization, because infrastructure, whether it's system, HR infrastructure, will always stand in good stead for the organizations, because a lot of these organizations really, when they are small to mid-size, when they reach that critical mass, when they acquire that critical mass, they then fail to take off. For example, if an organization is, say, $100 million company, and they want to sort of become a $500 million company in the next 3 to 5 years, the system infrastructure, the ability to automate, digitization will accelerate that growth and will acquire more customers for them in the market. So I think it's a choice around decision making, but it's also a choice around how you make that decision in a simplistic manner, looking at what really matters to you now, but also what can give you advantage in the next 3 to 5 years. if that makes sense, Vinay.
Yes, yes, and but because this is AI and because we are genuinely living in a VUCA world, there'll be a lot of changes. I mean, as it is, startups struggle to keep up with a lot of things, and there'll be one more variable that would come into picture. So again, the question is that would they be able to keep up with that? I mean, how would the audience here, who are probably working in startups, how would they be able to really harness the beauty of AI, if I were to say that?
I think I'll just build on that, and feel free to jump in, all the esteemed panelists. I think AI will become organizations more marketable for their potential clients. For the employees, they bring skills that will be skills of the future. As a result, they also get a lot of marketability if they venture into new areas, right? Like automation, RPA, allowing process intelligence to be led more from a system perspective. I think the other way to look at it is what sort of complications it may bring in, because everyone is after that unique sort of culture to create not only scalable automation, but also create a culture that will stand in good stead. And that's why it is important for the organizations to understand what stage of journey they are in. If they are a mature organization, it becomes a much more different decision for them because they already have a lot of work that has gone in. But a smaller to mid-sized organization would find it difficult to sort of see it far too ahead. And that's where the sort of dilemma lies for the small to mid-sized organizations. Vinay.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Continuing with that, Sultan, there's a question for you. I mean, so we need to be aware of the pitfalls of AI also. So what are the pitfalls? What are the negatives? What are the avoidables as far as AI implementation in organizations are concerned?
Well, I think first let's understand what is the current existing tool that we have, in terms of like currently these AI-based solution, for the HR and workforces, are more likely, it's more like analytical tools that, to predict, a certain data, etc., etc. I think for some businesses, the first thing is that, they have to actually ask two questions. One is like, they have to work to understand, what is the actual outcome of this solution. Why they're implementing this? It's not just simply just investing there, especially for example, as you mentioned earlier, for startup or medium-sized company. And as Amit mentioned, they have to understand their maturity level because they want to move from step 1 to 2, 3, 4 to 5, for example, and they have to define their own maturity level. So these are like I can give you like just a couple of points there. They have to understand what the business actually need, and they have to listen to their clients and to see what is available there in the market, and they have to consider all other factors as well. So I hope that covered the question for you, Vinay.
Yeah. It does. I mean, Sultan, if I were to look at, there could be coding biases also, or there could be absence of alternative scenarios also, or the IT tools may be vulnerable. So while we are in AI, we are actually dependent on IT heavily. But what if the tools are vulnerable? How would, larger organizations would have the money, the budget to take care of it? How would the smaller MSME or type of organizations take care of it, wherein they do not have that kind of
online for small to medium-sized, organizations that they can utilize, for sourcing, for interviewing, for onboarding, for coaching, for employee service centers as well. And this is there are a couple of examples, that they can actually find online. However, for the large organization, you know, if we want to discuss about, you know, the biases, for example, and then we want to eliminate that using the AI, I think one of the things that we have to do is that we have to eliminate, the biases from the job description itself. So that's I think very crucial part, and maybe perhaps we have to restructure our referral system because this is also another important part. We should actually revisit our interview question, and then we make sure that it is actually part of the AI and it should be part of the process itself, where the candidate can log in, just answer, and then we have a very proper and fair weight to be part of the AI as well. Then maybe perhaps deploying a skill assessment to understand their capabilities. And we have also to consider the facts, for the candidates that they're applying the years of experience, what question do we ask them? Because somebody, with 2 to 3 or 4 years experience wouldn't be able to answer a question, with somebody with 15 plus years of experience. So we have to understand, our AI has to know all these predefined settings, during that kind of process. I think also work just two more points for me. I think giving a work sample test is also
Sultan, we are running short of time. I'll just take one last quick word from David and then close it and open the question for audience because we are running absolutely short of time. So David, one last quick, probably 2-line answer on how would predictive and prescriptive analysis, how would it impact the people function and management in general? If I were to, summarize in 2 lines, how would you do that?
So how would it impact the culture in? Sorry,
it impact the people function and management in general. I mean, if I were to say a closing line on this, on the predictive analytics.
Yes, I will try to do it very short. It changed the way we make decisions. It changed the way we manage people in a positive way, and it makes our lives easier. You can see I'm a big fan of automation and analytics.
We all are.
I can go far deeper into that, but I think that's the short answer. Yeah.
We all are. We are fan of AI. Okay. Over to you, Helen. I think we had a great discussion today.
Yeah, thank you so much. Am I audible? Yes. Thank you so much. I think I'm just going to give you time for one question because we're running really, really late. But thank you so much for all your contribution, amazing insights. AI is a very scary word for HR. People think their jobs are going to be extinct in a few years, but I'm glad you brought so much of perspective to it. So one question we will take is, how is HR tech changing the workplace? And give us some examples very quickly. Who would like to take that question? Amit, you want to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, I think HR tech has the power to transform organizations to make better human decisions that can influence both talent and business outcomes for the organization. I think the problem is that there is too much of technology jargons and there is just too much of vendors and capabilities. As a result, it becomes very difficult for an organization to understand which is the right tool or technology that can take them to the next stage. I think that's the decision dilemma that is faced by most of the organizations today.
Absolutely, yeah, rightly said. Thank you so much. That's all we have time for. Vinay, thank you for moderating an amazing session. Adi, thank you for your insights. Sultan, David, Amit, very, very grateful for your time and all the efforts that you have put in to have this panel have such a beautiful impact on our audience and great takeaways for them as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.